My name is Camilla Banda and you're welcome to the Possibility Series. This series is dedicated to letting young people know what is possible when they take responsibility for the economic trajectory of our nation. Today, I am joined by an amazing man. His name is Mr. Curtis Lloyd. He is the CEO and founder of Possibility Practitioners, and he's here to share with us what it's going to take for Zambia's young people to get to the next level. Mr. Curtis Lloyd, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you could make it.
Thank you.
I've definitely been a follower of yours for years on social media.
Wow.
And then there happened to be that opportunity in which we had the same speaking platform. Definitely I got to see an even greater side to you. But for the audience's sake, tell us who you are.
A very tough question, I should say. Because it's relative depending on who is listening. But ultimately, I think I would sum it up as somebody who got to discover that there's absolutely no way that we could have come. We saw this world and just exited without really leaving an impact. And more so, I'm of a very strong conviction that there's no way that we can have this beautiful universe that we have with all its magnificence just to live an average life. So I do believe that maybe I came for that cause, just to bring that awareness that there's much more out there.
Amazing, amazing. That is really great. So tell us, Mr. Lloyd, what do you do in your work for those who do not know?
Today I can comfortably say I've been in the banking sector for I think 18 years now. Of course, maybe on this public platform I can even announce that I exited some 2-3 weeks ago, just to try and pursue other dreams and the like. But more so, like you've mentioned, I'm founder and CEO of Possibility Practitioners. I think we'll get to talk more about that. I'm director of a company also called White Falcon Zambia Limited, which runs different businesses, and I hope I'll touch one or two things in that regard. Then I'm also a partner in another company called Venture Developers. So we do different things that range from consultancy, general supply, branding, and trainings actually in different elements. I'm a financial literacy advocate. I'm an investments advisor, and yeah, that and much more.
Oh, that is really amazing. And it's an amazing CV. And I love how you said, you know, this is something that you have built over 18 years, you know, like that's a pretty long process.
Absolutely.
And, you know,
and I forgot one more thing. I'm also an author. I've written about 1 book so far. Yeah, so I've written a book called Take Me to Kaunda. Basically, the heart of the book is just to bring that conversation with young people, because the greatest competition we have right now is information against wisdom, and then we've got different things that we get to talk about, and we want to compete in a space where we're supposed to collaborate. Then we want to compete in a space where we're supposed to tap wisdom from. So I bring that book to say there's always somebody that's gone ahead of us. There's somebody that could have treaded the path that we want to take. There's somebody that could have done what we want to do. And there's somebody who would have achieved what we intend to achieve. So I think this has gone all out there. We've heard people say riding on the shoulders of giants. And I get to say, yes, we need to do that as much as possible if we need to accomplish more as young people. So Take Me to Kaunda basically talks about that. And more so, it talks about the fact that, look, if I have a challenge as an individual, for example, I have a headache, I don't need to go to medical school to go and sit there for 7 years to learn how to deal with a headache. I've got a medical practitioner that has gone to school for my sake, so that when I sit with him for 7 minutes, I get to deal with a problem that would have taken me 7 years. So that is the heart of it, that we need to go and sit before those that would have done things that we need to do ourselves.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's, you know, that's such a great story. So tell us, Mr. Lloyd, what was it like growing up for you? Like what was your background like?
Interesting. So I think I grew up as a not so loud boy. Along the journey, something I think quite significant happened. One time I saw my mom cry. I was very, very young, very, very small. I think I'll talk about 2 significant events. So one of which was me seeing my mom cry. And after that, I made up my mind. I told myself that I'll never be the reason why mom should ever cry in my life. I was very young. It wasn't balanced against morals, but I was so pierced by the fact that, wow, I could see mom cry. So the details of that is something that I'll share over one day over time, of course.
Indeed.
Yeah. So the second experience was actually this particular day. I'm taking a walk to the market, and then there was an old man that was walking ahead of me. And so as I was getting rather closer to where he was, he tried to pull something from his pocket, and then he dropped a bunch of money. But then he had not realized that he dropped that money. You know, those days there would be a lot of superstition and all. You would think, what is that and all. So I decided to run after the old man, and then I tapped him on his shoulder and told him, you've dropped something behind. So he turned, looked at the money, got it, and I proceeded to go to the market. On my way back, I found this man seated at the same spot that I had met him. And then he called me. He still recognized me. And then he called me, and then he told me, you know what, may everything go well all your life. Now, that experience, that is a long time ago. But I still have this face of this old man, and the weight of his words carried me. And out of that experience, I told myself that we ought to practice random kindness. I told myself, that became my philosophy. I may not have coined it that way, but I made up my mind to just be a good citizen. Of course, growing up would do all sorts of things, but there's that compass, the moral compass within you that gets to direct you. Yeah. So even when you go to wander away and do all the stuff, there are those two significant events that actually changed my story.
Wow, that's amazing that two just seemingly small moments, would have impacted your life forever. And I feel like whenever it comes to betting on yourself, and whenever it comes to, we never know the day that is going to, change our life forever. Like it always starts out like a regular day. It always starts out like an ordinary. And this is how come, I think probably one of my best character traits, and one of my probably most annoying character traits sometimes is, like my hyper positivity. Because I just feel like if we're going to expend so much energy looking forward or dreading the negative things that are going to happen, what if we spent that energy, like looking forward to the exciting thing that's going to happen?
Absolutely.
Like looking for the amazing in every day, because like you said, with all the magnificence of God's green earth, why should our lives be ordinary?
Very, very true. One of my many mantras, I've got quite a number of them. One of them I get to suggest and believe that, you see, we should not focus, and that is, I'll give the definition of, we talked about possibility practitioners, right? So I have a definition of possibility. So I coined it rather not from the perspective of chance, because I think out there, if we were to be academic, they'll talk about possibility as the likelihood, something happening or something not happening. But I got to define it in this context. I said, if something is likely to happen, then we should insist that what should happen must happen. So that becomes my definition of possibility. So I gray out the element of it not coming to pass. It's just like the issue of success. There are people that tend to feel like, oh, I shouldn't try out this, what if it fails? But the question is, what if it succeeds? So that should be the mindset that we ought to posture and what we need to portray out there. Yeah,
that's really amazing. And for me, the reason this is called the possibility series is, what can be, on a very similar premise to what you've just said. What could be if we took action? What could be if we exploited opportunities? What could be? Who would we be? Another very pivotal moment for me in terms of what made me decide that I wanted to serve young people full time. In the past, I had served young people, as a part-time venture. It was like what I did in my spare time because I found it fulfilling, naturally. However, I had the rare honor and privilege of meeting Mrs. Grassa Michelle. This is one woman.
Amazing.
Yes, this is one woman whose words were so impactful. And she looked at me and a group of other girls and she says, why don't you see yourselves as stateswomen? She asked us, why don't you see yourselves as stateswomen? You need to realize that the time I was you need to realize that the time that I was coming into governance, I was a minister of a very newborn country, and I was only 27. Amazing. Think about the age of the people that, the Kaundas and the Kaundas and all of these amazing people who fought for your freedom were. The time that they started to take responsibility for the future of their nations, they were much younger than you are. So there's no reason you shouldn't be betting on yourself. That really flipped the script, and it made me change how I see myself, because at the end of the day, the people that have gone on to make significant impact, they started young. They started whilst they were fresh. They started whilst they didn't know.
Absolutely.
And she said, you know, when we were coming into governance, we had no idea. All we knew is that our countries needed to be free.
Yeah.
And she's the only woman to have ever been married to 2 presidents in a lifetime. So you can understand, you know, like, you know, like if anybody is not going to believe in you, let it not be you. Let it be other people who don't believe in you, but you believe in yourself. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective that you bring there because first of all, these guys that like that generation that you're talking about is one that came in without really having the experience in terms of sight of what it is like to be, you know, first-hand governors. So it was quite an interesting phase. But then they took the challenge, and here we are. We rightly put the fruit of what they fought for.
Oh, see, right now we are a possibility of their efforts. You know, you know, the reality we experience today could only be made possible because of the efforts of other entrepreneurs, even just the entertainment, you know, the phones in our hands, the seats that we're sitting on, the cameras recording this episode. You know, they were only possible because somebody decided to take action. And so even for me, I don't really like the idea to say that possibility is somewhere out there left to chance, but no, it's something right here, right now, that we're gonna do.
Absolutely.
You said that, you know, one of the happiest accidents happened to you in your lifetime, and this really gave birth to a lot of your now work. So tell us about that story, because I feel it's so amazing.
So I get on a tour to go to Dubai, and then initially I was supposed to have gone to Johannesburg. But then we got to discover that it was cheaper going to Dubai. So we were like, okay, let's take on this trip. So we get there, and one of the things that I decided to do was before we could tour any other place, I was like, I would want to see the museum. So I postured within myself to say, let me not get carried away by the magnificence of this place. Let me get the mind behind it. So I went first of all to the museum.
You think very different. I can tell you that for sure. Not everybody would think that.
Yeah, so my first stop was the museum, and then we got to now watch how Dubai transitioned from this desert land into what we see today. And then I began to interrogate each detail on what really, you know, caused Dubai to become what it is. One of the interesting elements that gave the birth to actually possibility practitioners was how the island, for example, Palm Jumeirah was constructed, because there's a very beautiful story around it, and the fact that there was no land on sea. They had to construct land onto the sea to create what we see today in that Palm Jumeirah. But what really is striking is the content as well as determination to do that. First of all, even the way that the Emirates think, because one of the things they told themselves was, look, if we talk about civilization, they've embraced it to say civilization started with the Arabs. They talk about the pyramids of Egypt having been the tallest, you know, structural buildings back then. So they believe in themselves that there's no way that we can permit that another people get to build structures taller than ours.
I love
and that's how
that.
come they got to construct the Burj Khalifa. So where they sit, should anybody build any structure taller than the Burj Khalifa, they will build another one. So that is what they believe. So they've built the biggest shopping malls and all that. So the idea was to posture themselves to be the best citizens in the global village. And so when I sat and began to think about what they've done, I told myself, these guys are possibility practitioners. So that was the birth of possibility practitioners. And I was like, whoa, we can localize this. If they can think it's possible, let's think it is possible as well. And we can begin to practicate that. So that is where we get to have the name possibility practitioners come into effect. And yeah, here we are.
That's amazing. And the thing about it is that we should see, there was a picture that was published about Lusaka in the 1950s.
And Dubai
in 1950s, and they were comparable. In fact, Lusaka looked better off.
Lusaka looked better than,
Yes, Lusaka was far more advanced. However, this economy that had nothing but oil decided to change things up, use what they had to make an amazing future for themselves. And they did it, you know, in just a period of over 70 years.
Absolutely. So what they did, which is very, very significant, was they knew that they've got oil reserves. But the king and everybody, the leadership, told themselves that, look, oil is a diminishing resource. Eventually we'll run out of oil. What should we do? So they were like, let's design Dubai to be the hub of tourism, to be the #1 destination for tourism. So they tilt away from focusing on the asset that they already had to creating an asset that is intangible, which is tourism. So they beautify the place to force us to go visit Dubai. I give this example to say, look, when you get to Dubai, one of the most amazing places you'd want to go to is the desert. But the desert is a mass of emptiness. It's just bare land. But you are attracted because of how they've postured it, what they've done around it. And so you are forced to go and see emptiness. But that's what they've done around it. So we are all globe-trotting, but we end up passing through Dubai, want to experience their life. Because we're no longer even moved or faced by the fact that it's oil that built. Now it's tourism that is, changing that. And I think that is the mindset we ought to have. When we have what we have, the question is, what should we bring in after what we have? What rather we have has gone. So that will cause us to think, thoughts that build the future than to live in the now.
Oh, I love that. Like thoughts that build the future and to live in the now. Yeah. And another striking thing that you said is like they would not permit it. So, I feel like if we had to come together as young Zambians and say, okay, this is our story. This is what we have now. This is what we have on our hands. And the possibilities are even far more endless because if anything, Zambia is an extremely rich country.
Absolutely.
Because if you think of minerals, we have it. If you think of vast land and agricultural resources, we have it. If you think of education and even technology, we have the potential to have all of these things simply because we're in a bargaining position. We're in a position to negotiate.
Absolutely.
And, what would be possible if young Zambians had to say, what is it that we're not going to permit? What is it that, the next generation is never going to see because we lived?
Yeah, you see, one of the other things that I got to appreciate about Zambia is the amazing weather. Weather in itself can actually be a tourism attraction. It's so amazing.
Yes.
When you've been places, you get to discover that we are underutilizing what we've got.
Yes.
But getting back to what you say, what is possible, I think we can also tap into, I know we've talked about Dubai, there's the story of Singapore as well. Singapore,
let's go there.
It has an amazing story. Now, here is a country that has zero resources, like natural resources to boast about. But one time, the rulers got to sit and think, and then they got to ask themselves critical questions like, what do we have? And then they got to realize that we've got the people. And that is the resource they've used to date to transform Singapore from a third world country to be a first world country. And that is what we need to use in Zambia. And so as we get to talk to our people, the question is, how can we use our uniquenesses, our diversity, to get to the common goal? How do we get to, to blend and utilize what somebody knows to build on what the other person may need? That is the kind of, thinking that we ought to have. And I tend to advocate as well. I know there's a conversation around mindset change. I love that people talk about mindset change, but I also would rather we talk about a fixed mental attitude. Now, mindset change is to suggest that we should change the way we are thinking. So that is a conversation that has a terminal point. It means that the moment we begin to think in a particular way, then we should agree that now we should not, progress with this conversation. Would have achieved our goal. But when you talk about a fixed mental attitude, that's the conversation that the people in Dubai have, to say nobody should actually have this more than we have it. That is the mindset we ought to have, fixed to the fact that there is no way that Zambia should be poor. There is just no way. So that mind begins to program the way you act, the way you make decisions, the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you contribute to society, because you would know that if your mind is fixed towards how our society ought to be, then even the way you act in society gets to be determined by that.
I feel like that's such a powerful point, because when you look at certain nations, we know them because of their mindset.
Absolutely.
I mean, Americans, as far as they're concerned, America is the greatest nation that has ever been.
You can't bargain that out of them.
You cannot. Hustlers, that Nigerians, they have that. It's them.
Yeah.
And then if you look at us Zambians, I feel like with the majority of us, the tendency is to look down on ourselves and stuff like that. But then what if we actually keyed into what is that #1 thing that Zambia has that nobody else has? you know, like if there's one thing that I can say can stand out about Zambians and why it's been hard for a person such as myself to live outside here for too long has been our hospitality. You won't find nicer people than Zambians. You will not find kinder people than Zambians. But what if we were to take that and, okay, I know that, you know, to an extent in its extremities, it's destroyed us. Because we're just like, okay, take, go, you know, in a lot of instances. Which I will not get into on camera.
No, generally we are very loving people, very accommodative. Nobody feels like they are, you know, alienated when they come here.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
just come and then you fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, what if we were take that as a hyper positivity? We happen to also house one of the world's 7 wonders. So, you know, if we took this up and everybody wants to go to Zambia because of who Zambians are and because of how much there is to share, you know, even in our homes, you know, like I discovered that it was actually very strange in places such as Sweden for like if your child goes to a neighbor's house for your neighbor to feed the child. Like nobody is allowed to eat at anybody else's home. But in Zambia, you know, like this sparked such a huge Twitter debate. Everybody was shocked. It's just like, I just can't imagine a human being walking into my home and leaving the way they came.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, there's a lot that we need to actually, you know, make loud about our country. I think I made a bold statement a couple of years ago concerning what we have. I said, you know, just the very resource that we have, like the Victoria Falls, for example, that alone is able to turn Zambia into a first world country.
Absolutely.
If we look at
Singaporeans could do it with zilch.
Exactly. So the question is, how are we posturing ourselves for that? So we have to be deliberate and make sure that we are bold about that very thing. Some of the things, I think we become a bit apologetic in a number of things. Getting to where we talk about how Zambians are, you know, we're this kind of reserved and all that. We are not aggressive in terms of how we posture ourselves, even in the global stage. If only we can just lift that a gear higher, we'll change a lot about our country.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like there also needs to be a conversation around us seeing the humans as an extremely valuable resource, because you know there seems to be a sort of determination to undermine the value of the people. But then when you think about people, they're the one resource that can multiply what it is they're able to produce, in as much as, you know, a gram of gold will always be a gram of gold, a kilogram of maize will always be a kilogram of maize.
We've got, not to sound political, I did get to suggest also that we need to position our people in strategic places so that they get to influence our sectors using both their expertise as well as their intelligence. I called it, for example, the Council of Technocrats. Now, when you talk about technocrats, what comes to mind, for example, would be something to do with, okay, somebody has been to university, they've done this, they've got a PhD and all that. But then there's somebody that is maybe deep in the rural setups of our country. The person that has mastered the soils, they've mastered the plants. It's way beyond a classroom setup. Those are the people that we may need to change our society to what we need to be. So it's getting everybody, carrying them along, and then getting to change our society as one people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's such a great conversation because, you know, even a council of technocrats, what I know about the Dubai story is like, that's what they did.
That's what they
Because they looked around and said, okay, so we have sand, oil and people. So what are we going to do? Who's the best at engineering?
Absolutely.
They took the people that wanted to learn engineering to Germany.
Yeah.
Who's the best at this and this? And with each and every people, when they looked, who's the best at agriculture? Okay, let's take them to Africa. Who's the best at this? And they went and took those people out of their spaces and brought them back.
Absolutely.
And when they brought these people back, they were able to build what it is that we see today as a first world country.
Exactly. And one of the things we shouldn't be shy about is to use external resources to come and help us build our country.
Absolutely.
A number of people get to think that we ought to think a Zambian to construct a skyscraper, for example. But who built, for example, the Burj Khalifa? It wasn't the actual Emiratis or the people of Dubai. They brought engineers from, architects from outside who came and structured something that the people of Dubai are benefiting from. We need to posture ourselves to benefit from external resources that channel in resources into our country. So that conversation also needs to be broadened if we are to reap the kind of results that we are hoping for.
Absolutely. And you know, the reason this is the Possibility series and why it's focusing on economic development and entrepreneurship is because when you look at stories of like places such as Dubai, when you look at, you know, places such as the USA, you know, it wasn't built necessarily by politicians, it was built by its people. You know, they call them the people that built the United Arab Emirates, the people that built the United States of America. So what is possible when the people, you know, decide to get up and build a nation? And in your case, what possibilities are you excited for with regards to Zambian youth right now?
So for the Zambian youth, I think we've got a lot that we can achieve in our time. And I always rather joke about this, that if we were to change our country, let's not get contracts from the government. So the thought is this: if we get contracts from the government, we are getting paid from the very government that is supposed to develop our country, the very resource that will not build in terms of the extent of growing our economy, because it's the same economy revolving, just moving hands from public to private sector and the like. So I was saying, look, why can't we now bring in resources from the outside, bringing in people that have got, you know, all these things that they ought to do. If we talk about FDI, for example, we've got all these opportunities right now, linkages and all that, and we can bring in a lot of people to come and change. We've got a lot of land, we've got a lot of, you know, opportunities to tap into. There's a lot of projects that are going on right now. And for young people, I think we should depoliticize most of these opportunities and begin to think you know, when you begin to think what you can do and the solution you can provide for yourself and your community, you transcend beyond a generation of a political regime. So you'd create a business that will last political regimes. And that is what young people should actually strive for. They should not just get excited because the person they like is now the person that is governing, or because the person they don't like is not governing yet, so they become relaxed. How do you build structures that will be independent of political regimes? I think that should be a very big call for young people, so that they should be able to stand out and be bold about what they are doing. They will not even be, you know, intimidated by their contribution to even in the political space, because their business is running as an independent, you know, business.
Absolutely, and I feel like, you know, that is amazing. And so, any last words for a young Zambian person, please? You can any last words for a young Zambian person? Yeah.
So for every young person that is watching this, including those young at heart, the world is full of possibilities. All of us are here because it was possible. And so if you were to meet an opportunity out there, before you think about how that it cannot happen, think about how that it can happen. Before you get intimidated by the fact that it can fail, be rather moved by the fact that it is capable of becoming. And if you were to define possibility, may I re-emphasize that possibility is not the likelihood or the absence of something getting to happen, but possibility is the fact that should there be likelihood of something happening, then you should insist that there shouldn't be any alternative. So you get fixed to that thing that should get to happen. And more so, may I zero into the fact that words are things. Words are not empty sounds. Words are things. Begin to speak positive about the things that you want to see. Begin to speak the things that you want to watch come to pass, because eventually you will live in the future that you're creating, both with your mouth as well as with the actions that you get to take. So yes, it's a world of possibilities, but begin to act now.
All right, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Mr. Curtis Lloyd on the Possibility series with me. Can't wait to catch you on the very next one. Ciao for now.